Today we are learning how to write functions. Doesn't that sound like so much fun? I haven't made a video for you guys in a really long time, so I'm trying to be all like happy about it. Step 1. We got to list possible relationships. Okay? So, let's think about this. Between first x and y values. Let's try that again. So we want to... Alright, so we have 1 minus 3 because it's 1 minus 3 because the difference from 1 to negative 3, you would have to subtract 3, right? So that equals negative 2. Or we could also get from 1 to negative 2 by multiplying by negative 2, and that also equals negative 2. Okay? So, now we have to determine if one of these relationships will work for every single set of points. So that's step 2. I don't know why I paused that, but I did. So we're going to determine if either 1 minus 3 works, or if we subtract 3 from every x, if that works, or if we multiply every x by negative 2, if that's going to give us our y. Okay? So we're going to take each set of points, and we're going to start with our first relationship, which is where we subtract 3 from every x point. So this is our x point, this is our y point, all right? So for 2, we're at this one here now. We have 2 minus 3, and that equals negative 1, so that checks out. And then we're going to do 3. 3 minus 3 equals 0, so that checks out. And then we're going to do 4 minus 3 equals 1, so that checks out. It's supposed to be a check mark. Now we're going to look at this one. We're going to take our x and multiply it by negative 2 and see if it'll give us our y point. So we're going to start with 2, and we're going to multiply it by negative 2, and that gives us negative 4. However, our y is negative 1, so that doesn't work. And automatically, since we know that one doesn't work, we don't have to go through every one, but we will just to show you. So 3 times negative 2 equals negative 6. That doesn't work because for our x being 3, our y is 0. Don't work. 4 times negative 2 equals negative 8. When x is 4, y is supposed to be 1. So that doesn't work. So we know that our relationship that works is x minus 3 equals y, because I just wrote that up there. So anytime we have an x value for that relationship, we can subtract 3 from it and get y, or y equals x minus 3. Okay? We'll probably do another one of those at the end for anyone who wants to do a couple more problems. I know sometimes that can be a little bit confusing. We're just going to talk about this a little bit because you probably talked about this in science class a lot. Independent variables, that relates to your x, and dependent variables relate to your y, okay? And that's because when we make an xy table, we can choose our values for x. We can't choose our values for y. So we're just going to read through these. Identifying independent and dependent variables. A, in the winter, more electricity is used when the temperature goes down and less is used when the temperature rises. So, the amount of electricity you use is dependent on the temperature. So because the electricity depends on the temperature, electricity is dependent, and the temperature is independent. The cost of shipping a package is based on its weight. Well, the cost is going to depend on how much the package weighs. So your cost is dependent, your weight is independent. The faster Ron walks, the quicker he gets home. Obvious. So his time depends on how fast he's walking. So the time is dependent, the speed is independent. Now we're going to read situations and we're going to come up with what the dependent and independent is and an equation for each. So A is a lawyer's fee is $200 per hour. Lawyer's fee so we need to come up with the independent variable, which is our x, and our dependent variable, which is our y. Okay, so the cost depends on the hours. So we have cost and we have hours. Okay? However many hours we have, we can multiply by 200 and get the cost, right? So we always need y equals something. In this case, we can multiply the hours by 200 and get the total cost. So in order to show that, we just do 200 times x, because that shows whatever amount of hours I am there, put in for x, and I will get my cost. The next one says the admission is $8. Right. Rides $1.50 each. Okay? So we have our x and we have our y. Our x is independent, our y is dependent. The cost we pay, so that's going to be our dependent, depends on the number of rides we ride. Okay? So this one's a little bit different because we have an admission of $8. It's $8 whether you ride a ride or not. So even if you're just going, let's say this is a carnival, you're going to the carnival just to walk around, you're going to be paying $8. But if you want to ride a ride, that's additional, right? And each additional ride is $1.50 each. So if we ride 8 rides, we have to multiply 8 by $1.50, and then we would know how much we were spending on rides. And I don't know why I was going to put 8 in there, but that should be x. Okay? You don't need to put that in parentheses. I just did for fun. Alright, the next one is just evaluating functions for given input values, which you did on your Are You Ready for Chapter 3 type. So it says, if f of x equals 5x, find, I don't know, I'm having a hard time writing today. Find f of x when x equals 6 and x equals 7.5. So all you're going to do is you're going to say, okay, this is said f of x equals 5x, and they want to know what that equals when x equals 6. So you do f of 6, because you're putting 6 in for x, equals 5 times 6, and f of 6 equals 5 times 6 is 30, and you stop. You do not solve for a variable. Okay? Some of you are going to be tempted to solve for a variable, but you don't. Can't tell you the number of kids in the past who always think they have to solve for that variable. No. Okay. Then you would take 7.5. So we have f of x equals 7.5. Alright? f of x equals 5x. Let's see, 5x. And then we're going to put f of 7.5 equals 5 times 7.5. And then f of 7.5 equals 37.5, and we stop. No further, just stop. Okay? So, sometimes they'll have 2 numbers to evaluate, sometimes there will be 3 numbers to evaluate. It really just depends on how mean the publishers of the book are. Alright, so that's the lesson. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to do one of those table ones that we did at the beginning, but it could have been a little bit confusing. And then maybe another one of these. So, our next table looks like this. So we have x, y, 5, 1, 10, 2, 15, 3, and 20 and 4. Okay, so we're looking to get, how do we get from our x to our y? So, we minused 4 and got 1. So this is our x, this is our y. The other thing we could do to get from 5 to 1 is we could divide by 5, and that would get us 1, right? Because we're going bigger to smaller, we have to either subtract or divide. Smaller to bigger, we would add or multiply. So this is our x and this is our y. So those are our 2 options. We can either subtract 4 from each x and get y, or divide each x by 5 and get our y. So we're going to start, and we're going to go, okay, 10 minus 4 equals 6. Well, that one doesn't work, so I'm automatically, that relationship of subtracting 4 from each x isn't going to work. So we're going to go to divide it by 5. 10 divided by 5 is 2. That one checks out, but I can't just say because the first one checks out, they're all going to check out. So 15 divided by 5 equals 3. That one checks out. 20 divided by 5 equals 4. That one checks out. So, in order to write our relationship as an equation, we know we have to take x and divide it by 5, and that will give us our y. We can write that also as y equals x divided by 5, or you can even write it as y equals x over 5. It really just honestly depends on which way you like to write that. And let's do one of those these evaluating ones. We're going to do h of r equals 1/3 r plus 2, and we're going to find h of r when r equals 600 and r equals -12. Okay, so we're going to write the equation down. H of r equals 1/3 r plus 2. So we're going to put 600 in. Equals 1/3 times 600 plus 2. And then we have h of 600. 1/3 of 600, that's like dividing 600 by 3. You get 200 plus 2 is 202. Okay, we're going to do the same thing again. I'll change my color up. Probably should have done that a lot more. With 1/3 r plus 2. And then we have h of -12 equals 1/3 times -12 plus 2. 1/3 of -12 is like dividing -12 by 3, and you get -4. And then you add 2 to it, and you get -2. Okay, so today I went to the store, and I got caramel cakes, rice cakes. I got like the actual bigger ones, because I felt like it was fall and I needed some rice cakes back in my life, and they don't have the cheap cheddar ones anymore. So if you write caramel on your notes, I will give you extra credit.